London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down 'cause British leaders are morons and cowards. In 2017, 3 jihadis carried out a vehicular and stabbing attack that began on London Bridge. 8 people were killed and 48 were injured. The 3 jihadis were wearing fake suicide vests. Do you know why they wear fake suicide vests? To make sure that police shoot them because they want to die as martyrs. On Friday, a convicted jihadi who was on parole went on a stabbing spree that ended on London Bridge. 2 people were killed and 3 more were seriously injured. The jihadi, once again, was wearing a fake suicide vest. Why did these men want to die as martyrs? Because their religion teaches them that being killed while waging jihad is, quite literally, the greatest thing in the world. Sahih al-Bukhari, 2785. A man came to Allah's messenger and said, "Guide me to such a deed as equals jihad in reward." He replied, "I do not find such a deed." Sahih al-Bukhari, 2795. The Prophet said, "Nobody who dies and finds good from Allah in the hereafter would wish to come back to this world, even if he were given the whole world and whatever is in it, except the martyr, who, on seeing the superiority of martyrdom, would like to come back to the world and get killed again in Allah's cause." Sahih al-Bukhari, 2796. The Prophet said, "A single endeavor of fighting in Allah's cause in the afternoon or in the forenoon is better than all the world and whatever is in it." Sahih al-Bukhari, 2797. The Prophet said, "By him in whose hands my soul is, I would love to be martyred in Allah's cause and then come back to life and then get martyred and then come back to life again and then get martyred and then come back to life again and then get martyred." According to Surah 33, verse 21 of the Quran, Muhammad is the pattern of conduct for Muslims. According to Muhammad, what's the greatest thing in the world? Being killed while waging jihad. Fortunately, most Muslims either don't know what Muhammad said or they don't think it's all that important. But some Muslims do take Muhammad's teachings and example very seriously. The most recent London Bridge jihadi was one of them. The BBC reports. Police have named the London Bridge attacker as Usman Khan, who was previously part of a group that plotted to bomb the city's stock exchange. 28 was out on license from prison. License is British for parole. When he killed 2 people and injured 3 others in the stabbing attack on Friday before being shot dead by armed police. Since being released in December 2018, his conditions requiring him to wear an electronic tag had been living in Stafford. This just in, British police shocked to learn that wearing an electronic tag doesn't stop someone from going on a killing spree. He also took part in the government's Desistance and Disengagement program, the purpose of which is the rehabilitation of those who have been involved in terrorism. Well, that program seems to be working out well. Was out of prison for almost a whole year before he went on a killing spree. In 2012, he was sentenced to indeterminate detention for public protection with a minimum jail term of 8 years after pleading guilty to preparing terrorist acts. The sentence would have allowed him to be kept in prison beyond the minimum term should the authorities have deemed it necessary. In a reference to and 2 other defendants, the trial judge said, "In my judgment, these offenders would remain, even after a lengthy term of imprisonment, of such a significant risk that the public could not be adequately protected by their being managed on license in the community, subject to conditions by reference to a preordained release date." Sounds like a smart judge. He added that the safety of the public in respect of these offenders can only adequately be protected if their release on license is decided upon at the earliest at the conclusion of the minimum term which I fix today. Notice what he said here. He said he's not going to give and his friends a release date because they may be too dangerous to release. So he sentenced them to a minimum of 8 years, and only after those 8 years would it be decided whether to set a release date for parole. And yet, was released on parole, and he went on a killing spree. So what happened? But in 2013, the Court of Appeal quashed the sentence, replacing it with a 16-year fixed term, of which should serve half in prison. He was then released automatically at that point. So the trial judge said, look, you can't just release this guy after some fixed sentence. You don't know what he's going to be like when his sentence is up. The appeal court said, too bad, he's going to serve 8 years and then he's free to go. Was arrested in 2010, so he was free to go in 2018. Just as the trial judge warned, police could not adequately protect the public from this man. That's why people are dead. Electronic tags can't keep jihadis from stabbing people. Born and raised in Stoke-on-Trent, was originally jailed along with 8 others who were arrested in 2010. The 9, inspired by Al-Qaeda, had been under surveillance by MI5. The men, who were from Stoke, Cardiff, and London, were engaged in several plans, one of which involved a plot to place a pipe bomb in the London Stock Exchange. Those from Stoke were overheard discussing potential attacks in their city, including leaving explosive devices in pubs and clubs. Described members of the public as kuffar and dogs. By the way, look at the terms that are used for this group of jihadis. The 9, the men. Apparently, there's no more specific term that would apply to this group of men. At one point, was monitored in conversation about how to construct a pipe bomb from a recipe in an Al-Qaeda magazine. Ha! I learned how to do it when I was 18 from the Anarchist's Cookbook. Better be glad I'm a Christian now. The men had also been funding a proposed madrasa, a college for Islamic instruction, abroad, which was to be used for firearms training and would have been attended by... The Court of Appeal judgment said the groups were clearly considering a range of possibilities, including fundraising for the establishment of a military training madrasa in Pakistan, where they would undertake training themselves and recruit others to do likewise, sending letter bombs through the post, attacking public houses used by British racist groups, attacking a high-profile target with an explosive device, and a Mumbai-style attack. Several years ago, I posted a video titled The Jihad Triangle, in which I explained that jihad isn't the result of one factor, mere belief in Islam, but the result of 3 factors. Jihad requires 1, belief that Islam is true, 2, some understanding of what Islam teaches about jihad, and 3, the right personality type. Some people are willing to die for what they believe, others aren't. When you have someone who, 1, believes that Muhammad's words are true, 2, knows what Muhammad said about jihad, and 3, is willing to lay down his life for what he knows, you get jihad. Usman Khan obviously had the jihad triangle.
Illuminati.
But he was sent to prison. Now, if you send a jihadi to prison, and you know he's going to be released one day, you'd better make sure you remove at least one of the sides of the jihad triangle. If you don't, you're releasing a jihadi, and it's only a matter of time before he goes on a killing spree. But which side should you try to remove? Should you try to change his personality type? Should you try to transform him from a man who's willing to die for what he believes into a man who isn't willing to die for what he believes? Sorry, but you're not going to change his personality type. Should you try to undermine his understanding of jihad? In other words, should you try to convince him that Islam is really a religion of peace? That's the goal of the de-radicalization programs that terrorists are put through. Unfortunately, no serious jihadi is going to learn about Islam from a booklet handed to him by the British government. He gets his religion from Allah and Muhammad, and he already knows what they say. He'll be happy to pretend that the de-radicalization program is really making a difference in his life, but that's just to help him get out on parole. The best chance you have of changing a jihadi's mind is targeting the remaining side of the jihadi triangle, his belief that Muhammad is a true prophet. Some of you are thinking, no, you can never change a jihadi's mind. Absolute nonsense. If you pile on enough facts about Muhammad and you refute enough lies about Muhammad, a lot of people will leave Islam. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And many of those who don't leave Islam will nevertheless have their confidence shaken to the point where they're not going to go out and slaughter a bunch of unbelievers. The reason we don't see many jihadis leaving Islam is that they never have their confidence shaken. Their family tells them Muhammad was great, Muhammad was wonderful. All their friends tell them Muhammad was great, Muhammad was wonderful. Their imams and sheikhs tell them Muhammad was great, Muhammad was wonderful. Politicians tell them Muhammad was great, Muhammad was wonderful. Not that they care what politicians say. Journalists tell them Muhammad was great, Muhammad was wonderful. Not that they care what journalists say. Actors tell them Muhammad was great, Muhammad was wonderful. Not that they care what actors say. Educators tell them Muhammad was great, Muhammad was wonderful. Not that they care what educators say. And no one is going to walk up to these guys and tell them the truth about Muhammad because people are scared of them. The point is that all their lives, even after they're convicted of terrorism-related offenses, all they hear is Muhammad was great, Muhammad was wonderful. If they ever somehow hear someone like me talking about Muhammad, I sound like I'm insane because I'm going against the unified testimony of everyone they've ever heard talk about Muhammad. When a jihadi gets out of prison, his faith in Muhammad has not been challenged. It's been encouraged. It's been bolstered. It's been strengthened. And since he's already the sort of person who's ready to lay down his life for what he believes, and he knows that, according to Muhammad, the greatest thing in the world is being killed while slaughtering unbelievers for Allah, people are going to die. What should Usman Khan have learned about Islam while he was in prison? Here some of you are thinking, what could he learn about Islam in prison? He clearly understood Islam so well already. Wrong. Jihadis know what Islam teaches about martyrdom and terrorism. They know the practices they're supposed to follow. But beyond that, all of the information they have about Muhammad has been filtered and sanitized by leaders who don't want them questioning Islam. If they hear a critic point out that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, they accept the standard Muslim responses. Oh, it was normal back then, so who are we to judge? The jihadis never have to deal with a serious critique of Islam. So what should Usman Khan have learned about Islam while he was in prison? He should have learned not simply that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, but why the Muslim defenses of Muhammad's relationship with Aisha fail. He should have learned not simply that Muhammad married the ex-wife of his own adopted son after causing the divorce by lusting after her, but why the Muslim defenses of Muhammad's marriage to Zainab fail. He should have learned not simply that Muhammad broke his oath to his wives after swearing by the great God Allah that he would stop having sex with his slave girl, but why the Muslim defenses of Muhammad's oath-breaking fail. He should have learned that when his leaders told him that Muhammad was the greatest man who ever lived, they were spouting utter nonsense because Muhammad doesn't crack the top 99%. He should have learned that when his leaders told him that the Quran has been perfectly and miraculously preserved, they were lying because the Quran has gone through numerous changes over its history. He should have learned that when his leaders told him that the Quran contains miraculous scientific insights, they were lying because the Quran is a scientific catastrophe. He should have learned about Muhammad thinking that he was demon-possessed when he began receiving revelations. He should have learned about Muhammad repeatedly attempting suicide. He should have learned about Muhammad admittedly delivering revelations from the devil. He should have learned about Muhammad claiming that he was a victim of black magic that gave him delusional thoughts and false beliefs. In short, he should have learned what no one has ever bothered to tell him, and he should have been shown all of these things directly from Islam's most trusted sources. In fact, convicted terrorists should be required to learn what no one has ever bothered to tell them about Muhammad. Terrorists should be locked in a cell where they hear David Wood and the Apostate Prophet and Islam Critiqued and Sam Shamoun and Christian Prince videos blasting over a loudspeaker 16 hours a day. It sounds harsh, but it's the best chance you have of breaking the jihad triangle. Instead, Muhammad is praised by everyone, and the terrorist is eventually released from prison with the jihad triangle perfectly intact and firmer than ever, and people get killed. The victims of these terrorist attacks are victims not only of the teachings of Muhammad, but also of the cowardice of politicians and journalists to stand against those teachings. Cowards should not be running countries. Cowards should not be reporting the news. Cowards should be huddled in corners, lamenting their own cowardice while wearing coward caps. Sadly, there are so many cowards in our time that they form a majority in many countries, and they choose people like themselves to lead them and report their news. The world doesn't need another coward, my friends. It doesn't need a smarter phone or a better reality show or a faster internet connection or a tastier vegan burger. The world needs courage. Be the courage.